Welcome back to Potterbase. In this video I'm going to be going over 10 small details you might not have noticed in Harry Potter. Most of these small details are exclusively related to the books, not the movies, though a couple are applicable to both. My hope is that I will shed light on something you hadn't noticed before, though I'm sure those of you who are more observant and read the books multiple times may well have noticed these things already. So to begin at number 10, Professor McGonagall's name. Specifically her first name, which is Minerva. What's cool about this is that Minerva is actually the Roman goddess of wisdom in classic mythology. Given Professor McGonagall is one of the wisest characters in the franchise, her first name is a reflection of her intelligence. For those who don't know, J.K. Rowling studied classics at university, which is essentially the study of Greek and Latin. The Romans' main language was Latin, hence why the Roman goddess of wisdom is named Minerva. On to number 9, Percy and Penelope's relationship. In the book version of The Chamber of Secrets, Penelope Clearwater is one of the victims of the Basilisk's attacks. She actually gets petrified at the same time as Hermione. In response to this attack, George tells Harry that Percy is in shock because he didn't think the Basilisk would attack a prefect. In reality, however, the reason he was so shocked was because Penelope was his girlfriend, which is something he keeps hidden throughout the Chamber of Secrets. This piece of information isn't unveiled explicitly until the very end of the story, but as with many of the reveals in Harry Potter, there was a clue earlier on that indicated the truth. Number 8, the Goblins in the Forest. During the Death Eaters' attack at the Quidditch World Cup, Harry, Ron and Hermione escape into a woodland, and during their time amongst the trees they spot a group of goblins with a sack of gold. Now you're probably thinking, so what? But at the end of the Goblet of Fire we learn about Ludo Bagman's financial difficulties, specifically his gambling issues and the debt he has got himself into. If we jump to the last few pages of the novel, Fred and George tell Harry, Ron and Hermione about how Bagman owes goblins lots of gold, and that a gang of goblins cornered him in the woods after the World Cup and took gold from him. This, of course, refers to the goblins seen by Harry, Ron and Hermione, but they're mentioned so briefly in the Dark Mark chapter that you can easily miss the fact that the goblins Fred and George are talking about were actually seen by the main trio. And what's more, shortly after, Bagman also appears in the forest looking white and strained. Now we know why he wasn't looking happy, he's just lost a load of money to the goblins. Number 7, the Murtlap Essence Saga. This is a very minute detail that's really of no major significance, I just enjoy the subtlety. So in the Order of the Phoenix, Harry has to endure detentions with Umbridge which involve cutting into the back of his hand and writing in his own blood. In response to such savagery, Hermione gives Harry a bowl of Murtlap essence to soothe his wounds. Later on in the story, Lee Jordan ends up in detention as well, and Harry recommends he uses essence of Murtlap to help his hand heal. Skip forward about 20 pages or so, Fred Weasley says he and George fixed their skiving snack boxes by using essence of Murtlap, having been recommended to do so by Lee. So there's this small word-of-mouth Murtlap essence saga within the Order of the Phoenix that goes from Hermione helping Harry's wounds to Fred and George being able to fix the snack boxes. As I say, it's completely irrelevant to the main story, I just admire small details like this. Number 6, Dementors and Depression. Now this may just be my own lack of intelligence at not noticing this earlier, but it took me years to realise the significance of Dementors sucking out souls. Don't get me wrong, I always knew their power to make people relive their worst experiences was representative of depression, but I didn't realise the importance of losing one's soul. Taking the soul out of their victims is also a parallel for depression, when you feel numb, lacking in energy and have no desire to do anything. To quote Remus Lupin, you'll just exist as an empty shell and your soul is lost forever. Number 5, Peeves and the Vanishing Cabinet. As I'm sure you'll recall, Malfoy spends most of his 6th year trying to repair a broken Vanishing Cabinet in order to let Death Eaters into Hogwarts. Malfoy explains how he realised there was a way in and out of Hogwarts after Montague was stuck in the broken cabinet the previous year, and could hear both the inhabitants of Hogwarts and those in Borgin and Burke's, the popular dark art shop in Nocturne Alley. The clever thing is, this plot point was actually set up all the way back in the Chamber of Secrets. when nearly headless Nick persuaded Peeves to smash a Vanishing cabinet in order to distract Filch and help Harry avoid punishment. Though this is never explicitly confirmed, the Vanishing cabinet Peeves smashed is presumably the very same cabinet Malfoy was trying to repair several years later. On to number 4, Dumbledore's reaction to Voldemort taking Harry's blood. This is another tiny detail that's easy to miss, particularly if you've only read the series once. During the penultimate chapter of the Goblet of Fire, Harry has to recount to Sirius and Dumbledore what happened in the graveyard after he touched the Triwizard Cup. And when he tells them how Voldemort took his blood, Dumbledore has a look of triumph in his eyes. The significance of this is not revealed until the very end of the Deathly Hallows, when Harry has his conversation with Dumbledore at King's Cross Station. Dumbledore says he, Voldemort, took your blood and rebuilt his living body with it. Your blood in his veins, Harry. Lily's protection inside both of you. He tethered you to life while he lives. This, in essence, is why Dumbledore looks triumphant way back in the Goblet of Fire. Which leads to number 3, Snape's last words. I can't believe I didn't notice the importance of Snape's last words until a couple of months ago, a good 13 years after the original release of the Deathly Hallows. I'm pointing this out in the hope that some of you may not have noticed this, but I'm aware plenty of you probably have as well. So after being attacked by Nagini, Snape bleeds to death in the Shrieking Shack. But before his tragic passing, he gives Harry several memories, and just before he dies, he says the words, "Look at me." For years I thought this was Snape saying, "Look what I've become, look what's happening to me." But now I realise the reason Snape wants Harry to look at him is because he has his mother's eyes. Snape, as Harry's about to find out in the Pensive, loved Lily more than anything else, and he wanted her eyes to be the last thing he saw before his death. This is so beautifully sad and tragic that I can't believe it took me so long to realise this. Number 2, Hermione and the Love Potion. This is another detail that is never explicitly confirmed, but naturally I think I'm onto something here. In Harry's first potions lesson with Professor Slughorn, he has several potions pre-prepared for the class to observe. Hermione, of course, recognises the potions and tells Slughorn what they are. During her discussion of Amortentia, the most powerful love potion in the world, she explains that the potion smells differently to each person depending on what attracts them. She then starts to reel off what the potion smells like to her, but midway through her list, she stops abruptly due to embarrassment. For years I thought the source of her embarrassment was her sudden self-awareness. She felt she was being overly enthusiastic during her explanation. But it recently occurred to me that her embarrassment probably came from the fact she smelt something related with Ron. Harry, for instance, senses Ginny's perfume when he smells Amortentia, so it's safe to say Hermione probably smelt something similar in relation to Ron, and this was the source of her embarrassment. In essence, the potion confirmed or shed light on her romantic feelings for Ron. And number 1, Snape's worst memory. This is another one that came to me quite recently. In the Order of the Phoenix, Harry witnesses Snape being humiliated as a teenager via the Pensive. James Potter and Sirius Black essentially ridicule Snape in front of a sea of onlookers. Now the chapter this occurs in is called Snape's Worst Memory. As well as being humiliated by James and Sirius, Snape also calls Lily a mudblood during this chapter. Fast forward to the Deathly Hallows, we learn in The Prince's Tale that Snape was actually in love with Lily throughout his life, and this changes the significance of the chapter title, Snape's Worst Memory. Though you would not know it when you read the chapter for the first time, Snape's worst memory is so named not just because he was humiliated, but because he called Lily a mudblood, which was the spark that caused Lily to stop being friends with Snape. The memory is as much about shame and regret as it is about humiliation. So there we have it, those are 10 small details you might not have noticed in Harry Potter. Let me know in the comments if you learned anything new, and are there any small details you noticed that I didn't mention. Thank you so much for watching, and it's goodbye from me until next time.